Okay, good morning. So today I've got a bunch of administrative stuff to go through, and then we're going to go through some highlights of the ratios we have left. We will get out early today, our last day. Starting with this question, horizontal analysis compares financial statement items in the current period with other items in the current period. That is actually false because horizontal analysis compares items in the current period with prior period. To make that statement true, you'd have to replace the last current period with prior period. Horizontal analysis is a comparison of things over time. Comparing financial statement items in the current period with other items in the current period, that is vertical analysis. Okay? So that question will remain open for a few minutes. So if you have not logged in yet, get logged in. And so moving on. So we have the same handout today that we had Monday. Does anyone in here need it physically? We good? Okay, and online, Amir can help you. Okay, so some analysis. First of all, the homework for Chapter 13 is due this Saturday. What's unusual about that is it is due Saturday night. There is no extension. You have to have it in. All homework is cut off Saturday night. There are no more homeworks being submitted after this Saturday. So if you're still working on Chapter 12, you know how you have 10 days in theory. It's 10% off per day. Chapter 12 closes Saturday as well. So Saturday night, all the homework's due. The extra credit in My Accounting Lab is due Saturday if you're doing it. Practice Exam 3, which is a quiz, will be due before you take the exam, so that's not due Saturday. All homework and an extra credit is due Saturday night, no extensions, there's no doing it late, so get it on. Your job after Saturday is to concentrate solely on the final. Okay. Final exam, just to reiterate, it starts Monday morning, 9 a.m. Sometimes they start a little bit early, but to be safe, 9 a.m. You have to start it by Wednesday at 4 p.m. Lots of exams going on in the computer lab this week, so leave yourself plenty of time. Go early. And online, if you're taking it with Proctor, you schedule early. Schedule at least 72 hours in advance, and make sure you start it by 4 p.m. on Wednesday. Okay, the My Accounting Lab extra credit assignment is the only extra credit that's still available. It will add 2 points to your final score if you complete it with a score of 90% or higher each step. It's due this Saturday. The cutoff for help, if you need help, the last time you can get help is Friday at 1 p.m. So Start It is not designed to be, oh, Saturday afternoon I think I'll sit down and do this. You're not going to be able to do it then. It's 10 steps. You should probably have started by now, but you could still get started. But the cutoff for help is 1 p.m. on Friday. The extra credit, as I said before, I'm still getting emails about this. The extra credit assignment in My Accounting Lab will be removed from My Accounting Lab Sunday or Monday, around Sunday, Monday, somewhere in that range. Until then, it doesn't impact your score. I can't not have it impact your score if it's there, but after Sunday, I will omit it. Okay, what to expect during finals week. So, in this class, your 3 lowest quizzes will be dropped. I can't drop those until all the quizzes are done. I'm waiting for the practice exam quiz. So I would say I'm at a conference Wednesday, and I have something going on Thursday, but I'll be available via email. So Friday, May 13th, Friday of finals week, is when I will drop those 3 lowest quizzes. So once I drop them, I will email you and tell you that, but you can also tell I've dropped them by, if you look in My Accounting Lab under results, and then you'll see all the list of everything, and the ones that are dropped will be grayed out, and I'll have an asterisk next to it. It might even say lowest score. What's eligible to be dropped? Any quiz, which means any day of class It also means the practice exam quizzes. It also means the course intro quizzes. All of those are weighted equally, so your 3 lowest ones will be dropped sometime around Friday of finals week. Also, I've had a couple people email me asking me if I could calculate their grade with the 3 lowest dropped at this point, and the answer is no. If you're looking to see what score you should get that you should study for on the final, dropping your 3 lowest quizzes is not going to change your current grade that much, because it's not like you can decide I'm going to study for an 82 instead of an 84. I would counsel you to try your hardest on the final. You can put your grades in that grade calculator Excel worksheet on Blackboard and try your hardest. The drop quiz is great. I can't do that calculation for you, but that will happen on Friday. I will be working on grades after all the finals are in, probably. So I don't want to overpromise. So grades, all your grades, by the way, are due Tuesday after finals week at midnight. So all professors have till Tuesday at midnight to get them in. I am never a last-minute grader. In a perfect world, I'm hoping I could get your grades done Friday of finals week. Reality is we've got some graduations in our family this coming weekend, so I may be doing them Monday after finals week. I will for sure work on them Monday, and I hope to have the grades in Flashline on Monday. I will email you once I have entered the grades in Flashline, and I would appreciate you checking your grade in Flashline to make sure it corresponds to what you think. Once in a while, mistakes do happen. The other thing is, when you finish your final exam, do not email me and say, can you adjust my grade? I'm only 0.9 away from another grade or 0.1. In this class, I have 500 to 600 students. Absolutely guaranteed there will be people on the cutoff. I do not round grades. I do not adjust an individual student's grade. I want to be fair to everyone. If I adjust anyone, I'm adjusting everyone. In terms of your final grade in the class, the score in My Accounting Lab is your grade in the course. The things that do not show in My Accounting Lab will be any of the extra credit. I have not finished grading the extra credit. I will get that done sometime before grades are in. And so you've got the photo contest, you have the phrase contest, and you have the My Accounting Lab. So you have up to 4 points added to your final grade. That will not show in My Accounting Lab. I will add that when I'm doing the letter grade. You can see the score in My Accounting Lab. You know if you got the extra credit or not. In Blackboard, by the way, I added a link on the left-hand side menu that says extra credit grades, and you can click on that, and you'll see if I've graded it or not yet. But I'm going to be working on those over the next week. Okay, but I will not adjust an individual student's grade, and I'm doing all grades at one time. So if you email me after you've taken your final and said, what's my grade in the class, I can't tell you. I will do grades all at once. I will try to do them as soon as I can. I know grades are important, and I'm just as anxious as you are to be done. So I will get them done as soon as I can, and I will email once I've done different steps of the way. So I will let you know what's going on. Okay, your overall course grade shows in My Accounting Lab. In My Accounting Lab on the course home, click on results and then overall score. I am dropping your 3 lowest grades tentatively on Friday of finals week. That I cannot, again, I can't emphasize enough. I'm not going to adjust your grade. Every semester I have people email me and say, I'm only this far from the next grade and I need a grade to not be on probation or do something. I'm sorry, I can feel for you, but I will not adjust an individual's grade. Everybody's subject to the same grading scale. Your final course grade, your extra credit will never, ever, ever show in My Accounting Lab. Okay, I'm going to do that adjustment behind the scenes. Also, during finals week, invariably, I will get emails from students saying, what can I do to raise my grade? After you've taken the final exam, there is nothing. Everything's done for the course. There are no more assignments. The extra credit, we had 2 things due last week. We have 1 thing due this week. If you're concerned about your grades, you should certainly be working on the My Accounting Lab extra credit now. Okay, and then office hours during finals week, it's different. I'm in Monday and Tuesday, 9 a.m. to 11:30. both days, morning, after Tuesday, all communication via email. As I said, I'm at a conference on Wednesday of finals week, but I'm certainly available via email. So come see me Monday and Tuesday if you want to talk, but after that, it's going to be via email. Okay, so Chapter 13. So Chapter 13 is about financial statements, and where we ended up on Monday was we were just starting to touch ratios. And there's a whole sheet on the handout. The last 2 pages are all the various ratios. We are just going to do a sampling of them rather than go through each one, plod through. I'm going to pick out the ones that I considered most important. So we are in ratios. There's 5 groups of ratios. We're going to hit on 3 or 4 of the groups right now. We're going to be using the financial statements on pages 7 through 9. So if you're just curious, you can kind of look along. I don't think this is something you need to write down every ratio for. You've got, in the handout, you have all the slides about each ratio. The last 2 pages of this handout are the ratios off the exam reference sheet. That's exactly off the exam reference sheet, other than the exam reference sheet doesn't have much white space on it. Same order as that. So we're just going to be doing those ratios. So this is kind of a thing where we'll talk about the slides. You have the slides in the handout. And then I'm going to calculate the ratio for Walmart and the ratio for Sears. We'll talk about which one is better on each ratio and why. So today it's more a concentration on interpreting the ratio. So I'm not intending you to scramble and write down all the ratio calculations because you have the formulas. It's a matter of plugging the numbers in. So I don't think writing down Sears' current ratio is going to really help anything, but I wanted to show these ratios for real. So we have this first set of ratios, ability to pay current liabilities. Emphasis on the word current. Just a reminder, current means it's due within 12 months. It's due in the next year. So can we pay our bills that are coming due? And there's 3 measures we use, and the first one is working capital. And working capital is basically saying, here's my current assets. Current assets are those things that are going to be turning into cash soon. We need cash to pay bills, and then current liabilities are what's due soon. And generally, the larger the working capital, the better. It's the ability to pay current liabilities with current assets. Now, this is interesting because I'm going to show you Walmart. Okay, so Walmart. Again, we're taking working capital as current assets minus current liabilities. This is off the balance sheet because the balance sheet has our current assets and our current liabilities. So we just take our current assets in the current year minus the current liabilities, and we get a negative. So right off the bat, this is weird. Most companies don't have negative working capital. Negative working capital would generally be a bad thing, generally, and there's all kinds of generalities here. Walmart, though, has so much. Walmart, in its 10K, if you read its 10K about its working capital, it's actually proud of negative working capital because it manages its resources so that it can operate. It's a cheaper way to operate with negative working capital. So this is not a sign that Walmart's in trouble because when you read about them, they're intentionally doing this. It's just kind of unusual. They have negative working capital, but they have so much purchasing power over their suppliers that they can strong arm them into better payment terms so they can operate like this. So Walmart has negative working capital, not generally what you want to see, and Sears, surprisingly, has positive working capital. So each of these, when we compare Walmart and Sears, I'm going to tell you which one I feel is better. So in this case, just based on working capital alone, Sears wins. Sears is better shape in working capital just looking at the numbers. Now, if you were to say, okay, let me read the 10K about Walmart, Walmart's working capital is probably fine. It's not going to be fine for most companies, but Walmart's kind of unique in its power in the marketplace, good or bad. Okay, so that's working capital. Next up, we have the current ratio. In the current ratio, instead of taking current assets and subtracting current liabilities, we are going to take current assets and divide by current liabilities. And this is, again, a measure of our ability to pay our current assets with our current liabilities. In general, a higher ratio means a company's stronger. And again, in general, you would want to see the current ratio above 1. That's kind of a rule of thumb. You'd want to see that above 1. So looking at Walmart and Sears, Walmart's current ratio is 0.93. So they don't even get to 1. So generally that's not where you want to see most companies. But then we do Sears, and Sears has 1.11. So just looking at those two numbers, you would say that Sears has the stronger current ratio, because generally you want to see your current ratio to be 1 or higher. Okay? Now you can never look at one measure and judge a company based on one measure, because right now, if we were to stop right now, we could say, well, Sears is the better company. But that's not right. We're going to see some problems coming up. So you actually have to go and look at a bunch of things to make a conclusion. Next up is called the quick ratio. Now the quick ratio is also known as the acid test ratio. The acid test ratio is saying how easily could we pay our bills quickly? And by quickly, we mean what assets are almost cash, are going to be cash really fast. So we include all the current assets except for inventory, because inventory can be hard to sell. So the quick ratio or acid test ratio is, can we pay our bills quickly with those things that are almost cash? And a ratio of 0.9 to 1 is generally acceptable in most industries. So you're looking for something Here we go. Okay, can you hear me online? Yes, now? Okay, good. You didn't miss anything. I got a phone call. That's weird. Anyways, so, okay, so we want a quick ratio of 0.9 or so. And again, this is how easily can we pay our bills ignoring inventory, because sometimes inventory is hard to sell. So doing Walmart and Sears, Walmart has a quick ratio of 22.2%. So that's quite a bit below the 90%, okay? Still wouldn't worry too much about Walmart. Now, Sears. Okay, so remember, Sears was in better shape. At least it had positive working capital, and it had a current ratio of above 1. Now, this one is saying, let's take inventory out of the picture for Sears. So inventory out of the picture for Sears, it's only 12%. So if you don't count Sears' inventory, it really will struggle to pay. It's got to be selling inventory to be paying its bills. So on this measure, Walmart is actually stronger. Okay, Sears is relying on selling that inventory to pay its bills. And if it can sell its inventory, then that's okay. But Sears is getting into some liquidity problems with having a quick ratio down around 12%. That's pretty low. Walmart's is low. Sears is lower. Okay, so those are the liquidity ratios. So we're going to have a question now. And the acid test ratio reflects the company's percentage of total assets financed with total debt. Okay. And the key words here that you want to consider when you decide if this is true or false is the word total. Okay, this is the acid test ratio, which is also the quick ratio. Where we are. On the slide on page 3, middle of the page on the left, it says, shows ability to pay all current liabilities, okay, not total, okay? This is false because the acid test ratio is false for two reasons. First of all, the acid test ratio deals with current liabilities, okay, not total. Current are those things that are due in a year, not the total. So this is false because of the word total in there, not total. And also, it's not current assets for the quick ratio. It's cash plus receivables plus short-term investments. It's not all current assets. This is false for two reasons. So this is false. We are in that 5-second rule now. Okay, so moving on. Now, so we looked at liquidity, like this, do we have the money to pay our current debt? Now we move on to looking at how fast we're turning things over. How fast are we turning over our inventory? Is our inventory easy to sell or not? How are we collecting? Are we collecting our receivables on a timely basis or not? And then how fast does it take us to convert from when we start with inventory until we actually collect from a customer? That's called our cash conversion cycle. So we'll look at this for both Walmart and Sears. Actually, we're doing all of these. So we start with inventory turnover, and inventory turnover ratio is the cost of goods sold over average inventory. So this is on average how many times a company sells its inventory in a given year. This ratio, all other things being equal, you'd want to see it higher than lower. So higher is better when it comes to inventory turnover. It also varies widely by industry. If you operate a jewelry store, a custom jewelry store, your inventory turnover is going to be fairly low. But if you operate a grocery store, your inventory turnover ratio has to be really high because your food would go stale or spoil if you're not selling it quickly. So it depends on the industry. But we've got Sears and Walmart here in roughly the same industry. So first thing, our ratio says to take the cost of goods sold divided by average inventory. Okay, so the cost of goods sold over average inventory. Now, the word average, when you see that, you may need to do an extra calculation or not. If you are given a problem, because there's not a hard, fast rule. If you're given a problem and you're given last year inventory and this year inventory, you're going to calculate average inventory. But if you're given a problem and all you're given is inventory balance, then you use what you have. So if you're given two numbers, you average it. If you're only given one, you just use that which you have. So Walmart, average inventory, I'm going to take this year's inventory, add last year's inventory, divide by 2. So when you see this, when you have to do an average, you're taking this year, last year, divide by 2. So I get the average inventory. Now, my inventory turnover, I'm going to take my cost of goods sold for the year and divide by that average inventory. So it's telling me how many times do I turn my inventory over in a given year. And Walmart, it's about 8 times a year. So then I'm going to do that same thing for Sears. And Sears, I'm going to take their average inventory, which is this year's inventory plus last year's inventory, divide by 2. And then to get my inventory turnover, I'm going to take my cost of goods sold for Sears, divide by average inventory, and get 3.82. So the rule on this one, inventory turnover, is the higher is better. You're selling your inventory more times during the year. You want to sell your inventory more times during the year because selling inventory makes you profit. So the more times you sell it, the more profit you make. So on this basis, Walmart would be better. It's turning its inventory over 8 times during the year. Sears is only turning over a little under 4 times a year. So Walmart is moving its inventory over twice as fast as Sears, okay? And we know that Sears has a huge chunk of its current assets in inventory. And if it's relying on inventory to pay its current bills, this could indicate a problem, okay? So inventory turnover, you want to see this higher than lower. Okay, now, The next ratio is closely related to this one, and it takes this ratio and converts it into a number of days. It's basically saying, if we turn our inventory over 8 times a year, what does that mean? How long on average does it take to sell inventory? So what you're doing in this next one is days inventory outstanding is you're taking 365 dividing by that inventory turnover ratio. You're just saying how many days does it take to sell something on average? How many times, it's just converting to a days measure. Okay, so what we're going to do with this one is take 365 divided by our inventory turnover. So for Walmart, 365 divided by their 8 inventory turnover, 45 days. So on average, it takes Walmart 45 days to turn over their inventory, 45 days on average to sell an item. That's averaging everything. So then let's look at Sears. So Sears, we take the 365, divide by the 3.82 inventory turnover, 95 days. So now we're starting to see some of the problems that Sears is having. Walmart takes 45 days on average to sell something. Sears takes 95 days on average, more than 95 days on average to sell something. And Sears has a huge chunk of its current assets tied up in inventory. So this usually doesn't mean bode well. Okay, so that's inventory. So inventory is the first part of the cash conversion cycle. We have inventory, we sell it, so then the next piece is customers paying us. So now we get into the accounts receivable turnover. Accounts receivable turnover is how quickly we're collecting from our customer, how many times accounts receivable pays off in a given year. The higher the better. So this one's like inventory. So what we're going to do is we take net sales, divide by average accounts receivable. And again, there's that word average. So when we have the word average, we're looking to see, are we given last year and this year accounts receivable? And we are, so we'll take the 2, divide by 2. So Walmart, average accounts receivable, this year's receivable, 6,078, last year's 5,624, divide by 2, so we get the average receivable. Okay, accounts receivable turnover then is taking our net sales, dividing by the average accounts receivable. So we see 77.8. So 77, Walmart turns over its accounts receivable 77 times a year. Walmart is largely cash. Walmart doesn't offer a lot of credit, a lot of accounts receivable. So it would make sense that they're collecting their receivables several times a year. Sears, do the same thing with Sears, get their average inventory, get their accounts receivable turnover, it's 59 times. So accounts receivable turnover, we want to turn it over and over. We want to collect fast. So Walmart's doing better there too. So Walmart's able to collect faster. So we have accounts receivable turnover, higher the better. We can convert accounts receivable turnover into how many days on average it takes to collect. And again, on average, how many days sales remain in accounts receivable. So this one, remember that Walmart and Sears are largely cash businesses and cash credit cards, so they don't have a lot of receivables. So these are really small numbers. So we're going to take 365, divide by our accounts receivable turnover, and we see for Walmart, it takes on average a little under 5 days to collect on Walmart because you're averaging all their cash sales in there too. Sears, 365 divided by their turnover, 6 days. So again, even though these are small numbers, Sears is taking longer to collect than Walmart. So of the two, Walmart's going to be healthier there because you want to see the smaller number for number of days to collect because you want to collect your cash faster. Okay, so we started with the inventory. We sell inventory, Then we collect the cash for it with accounts receivable, and then the next step in the conversion cycle is to pay off our suppliers. Okay, so that deals with accounts payable turnover. So accounts payable turnover is the number of times per year that we pay off our accounts payable. Again, we have that cost of goods sold divided by average accounts payable. Again, are we given 2 accounts payable this year and last year? If so, we do the average. If we're just given 1, we use the one we have. So Walmart, their average accounts payable, $38,449. Accounts payable turnover then, taking our cost of goods sold, dividing by that average accounts payable, 9.39. It's the average number of times they pay off their accounts payable during a given year. Sears, we look at Sears, get their average accounts payable. Their accounts payable turnover is 12. Okay. We want to see us paying off accounts payable. So okay. And then we can also convert accounts payable into days, how many days on average it takes to pay. So we take 365 divided by the payable turnover. And Sears is paying its payables faster, which is fine. And probably why that's happening is Sears creditors are getting nervous because Sears has a lot of debt. Sears is not in good shape. It's widely known that they're struggling. So their suppliers are going to be demanding that Sears pay faster. Walmart, on the other hand, takes almost 39 days to pay. Why can they do that? Because they've got clout. They can tell their suppliers, you do it my way or we're going to go to someone else. That's not necessarily a good thing. I'm not advocating that, but that's what happens with Walmart, and that can explain why these ratios are the way they are. Okay, so what we've done is we've just calculated how many days on average it takes for both these companies to sell inventory. You can add then how many days on average to collect accounts receivable, and then subtract paying the suppliers, and we could get their cash conversion cycle. Okay, so cash conversion cycle is computing the total days it takes to convert inventory to receivables back to cash less the days to pay the suppliers. So cash conversion cycle, you want to be as short as possible because cash is king. You want to collect the cash. So it's going to be your days sales outstanding plus your days inventory outstanding minus days payable. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to Walmart's days sales outstanding 4 plus 45 minus 38, 11 days. Walmart has a cash conversion cycle of 11 days, which is really short, which is good. So then let's go to Sears. We do it 71. So here you start seeing some of the wide gaps between Sears and Walmart. Walmart is able to convert, get cash churning in. That's why they probably can live with a negative working capital. Sears, on the other hand, has a much longer conversion cycle. Sears has having trouble selling its inventory, and that's giving them some trouble. Quite frankly, probably the only way Sears is going to survive is if someone comes in and buys them. Okay, so question 22. A high inventory turnover may indicate that a company is experiencing difficulty selling its inventory. True or false? High inventory turnover. Okay. High inventory turnover may indicate a company is experiencing difficulty. That is actually false. That's the opposite. We want to turn our inventory over. If our inventory is turning over and over and over very rapidly, that means we're selling our inventory fast. So it actually is false. It means the opposite. So you want a high inventory turnover. I'm going to close this in 5 seconds. Okay, still onward. Okay, so I said we're doing selected ratios. We're not doing every single ratio. Next up are the leverage ratios, our ability to pay debt. And by debt, we mean all our debt, not just the current debt, but the long-term debt, the bonds we have, the mortgages we have. Can we pay all our debt? And we've got 2 things to measure that one. The first one is the debt ratio. The debt ratio is total liabilities divided by total assets. Notice the total, okay? Total liabilities divided by total assets indicates the percentage of assets financed with debt. You basically can finance your assets 2 ways, either with debt or with equity, by issuing stock or borrowing money. A ratio of 1 means that you have no equity, that you have financed all your assets. Not going to happen generally. A ratio of 50% means that you have half debt, half equity. If you had a ratio of 0, it would mean that you have all equity financing. There's no magic debt ratio that you want. The higher the debt ratio, the higher the risk. And the reason that is every time you have debt, you have to pay interest and you have to pay principal. So that puts stress on the company to make these payments. Whereas equity, if you have people that have bought stock, invested in your stock, you never, ever, ever have to pay them a dividend unless you declare it. So equity, you don't have to pay your shareholders anything. Debt, you have to pay the interest and you have to pay principal back. And so the higher your debt ratio, the more risky your organization. So let's look at Walmart and Sears. So total debt to total assets. Walmart, okay, their debt ratio about 58%. They have a fair amount of debt. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You want debt. You want to leverage debt. You want to borrow money where it makes sense. If you can borrow money and pay 2% on it and make 8% return on it, that's a good thing. So Walmart, 58%. Okay. Now let's look at Sears. So Sears, take their debt, divide by total assets. It's over 1. It's over 100%. What does that mean? Sears has more debt than assets. How does that happen? That happens because Sears has lost buckets and buckets of money. So Sears has more debt than it has of assets available to pay its debt, which is not a good thing. This is like, we've seen enough that Sears has warning bells going off everywhere. Of course, investors see this too, and Sears is in a lot of trouble. But we see 117% debt ratio. This is extremely risky. There's a lot of risk involved in this organization because it's got so much debt. It has more debt. It can't sell off its assets and pay its debt. It doesn't have enough. Okay, so Walmart wins on this, obviously. The next ratio we're not calculating, times interest earned. It's saying how many times is your income, how many times the interest expense you have to pay on your debt is your income. And you want to see lots of income, small debt payments. And Walmart's fine if you calculate this. Sears is not. Sears is losing money, so the times interest earned ratio doesn't even make sense because they're losing money. They don't have any earnings to cover their interest. Sears is just in a world of hurt. Okay. And then we get to the profitability ratios, and we are not going to do every one of these. Specifically, we're not going to do, you won't be doing the DuPont analysis, period. Earnings per share we've talked about before. I think I'm just going to pick out one here. I'm going to pick the gross margin percentage. Gross margin is sales minus cost of goods sold. Okay, gross margin is the profit on a sales dollar before you pay operating expenses. So you're just taking sales minus cost of goods sold. So gross margin is gross margin divided by net sales. And we are going to calculate Walmart and Sears. Walmart has a gross margin of 25%. So we take their gross margin, divide by sales, 25%. Can't make a judgment as to whether that's good or bad because we don't know what others are doing in the industry. Is that a decent gross margin? Who knows? Probably it's okay, knowing Walmart. Then we do Sears, their gross margin. They've got 23%. So on this measure, Walmart wins, but Sears is up there. So what this says is if Sears can sell its inventory, it's reasonably profitable at the gross margin level, but their operating costs are so high. It's something in that operating expenses is kicking them into a loss situation. But on a pure gross margin level, Sears is in the ballpark, but it's having trouble selling its inventory. It has way too much debt, and it is in serious trouble. And in fact, since they're losing money and because they have so much debt, some of the ratio analysis just doesn't make sense because they're in a loss position, and they've been in a loss for a while. Okay, so question 23. Okay, this one, ratios that test liquidity include all of the following except. Okay, and our liquidity ratios are actually at the bottom of page 2 on the handout. The ability to pay current liabilities, that's liquidity. Because that's what we're actually doing there when we're talking about ability to pay current liabilities, bottom of page 2 on the handout. When I talk about bottom of page 2 on the handout, it's those 3 items. So they're listed right there. I can't stand to end on a bad note. The answer here is debt to total assets. That's not a liquidity measure. Liquidity is going to be asset test ratio or the quick ratio, current ratio, working capital. Okay, and so what we've done now is we've done a sampling of the ratios. We don't want to go on and do 100 ratios. So we're at the end. So what I want to do is say we are actually done with class. And so that's as far as we're going. You remember that you have homework due this Saturday. The My Accounting Lab extra credit assignment's due this Saturday as well. I have office hours Monday and Tuesday next week. I wish you well. We won't see each other in class again. And I would urge you to connect with me via LinkedIn and keep in touch. And have a good finals week. Have a good summer. And if you need anything, email me. Okay? And we are done with class.